Your someday starts today. It's time to explore and test the newest science, methods, and trends for creating a life you love with your host, TanyaMFK. Welcome to My Designed Life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to My Design Life, where we discuss the realistic ways to create your best life now and then test them to see what really works. I'm your host, TanyaMFK. Thank you for joining me today. You can catch us every other Monday live right here at 3 p.m. EST, as well as YouTube, Binge Networks TV, IGTV, My Design Life podcast, and all your favorite podcast platforms. As always, I got to send a shout out to our faithful FM listeners at 99.1 FM WDJY and WTTA 101 in Kentucky and Ohio. You guys are simply awesome. Thank you for showing up. So today we are going to be exploring self-reflection, which I'm pretty sure has nothing to do with mirrors. So we're going to find out not only what it really is, but how to live it and do it in everyday life to increase our personal and career success. But first, I have to tell you guys, I followed the steps Guy Golan gave us last week on the show for getting your needs met in relationships, and it's kind of magic. And even though I had a bit of a rough week, I legit felt like a princess with my husband. And listen, guys, I really adore him, but he's not one that you would normally equate with a Prince Charming. So what I'm saying is that this stuff really works. And if you haven't checked out the last episode and you want to create a great relationship in the midst of busy, I suggest you go take that out. Now, speaking of busy, for any of you ambitious moms out there, I was just invited to be a speaker at the Ambitious Mom Summit with the one and only Stacey Walker. This event brings 30 inspirational women to give actionable tips to grow your business and sanity because yes, you can have it all. It's going on now. There are both free and elite passes available. So you can check that out at TanyaMFK on both my Facebook and Instagram pages for details. And lastly, I do have a little hashtag humble brag. I'm super excited to be attending the CESA Awards ceremony this week in Prague. My business was nominated for a Freedompreneur of the Year award. So it turns out that these best life hacks might actually work. So why don't we get into some more? My next guest recently stood on the global TEDx stage to teach next level leadership. He co-leads IBM's global coaching community for over 4,000 coaches across 80 countries, while also serving as an executive coach himself. He teaches top C-level leaders across the globe, raising the bar and inspiring change in the culture of leadership. He was just recently accepted to be one of Dr. Marshall Goldsmith's 100 Coaches of Europe, which if you don't know, Dr. Goldsmith is an amazing human and a world-renowned business educator and leading expert in his field. As if that wasn't enough, he is certified NLP trainer and carries certifications in contemporary psychotherapy, blast technique, and as an energist. Please help me welcome a member of Fast Company's Impact Council, founder of Elevate 2019, and man that's raising the bar and helping everyone over it, Mr. Paul Crick. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Tanya. My goodness, when you say it like that, that's wonderful. That's very kind of you.
Well, you know, you did it, right? I had so much fun really researching you and learning about it. I want to go learn about all of these things from you. And I didn't even mention in my intro that you also somehow have time for hobbies like Aikido and recording music. Like it was not only impressive, but I was discovering new things and techniques that I'd never heard of. I was excited and then overwhelmed. And I was like, I'm behind as a human. So really,
don't look at it that way. It's just there is a path, and there are many things out there that can help us do things and get to the life that we want. It's about finding and discovering what works for you best of all. And
I'm ready to take baby steps. So let's dive into self-reflection as a tool for life and leadership and everywhere else it can apply. So can you briefly just give us some foundation of what this is and what it really means?
Well, it was interesting. You talked about the fact that a mirror wasn't involved, but what it is it's a way of taking space and time to remove all distractions, to evaluate how a certain situation has gone, um, in a particular day, in a particular week, in a particular year. So typically we would reflect once a year when we're thinking about New Year's resolutions for those that want to do that kind of thing. And we say, well, how did my year go? What went well in the various dimensions? So if you took a wheel of life approach, you might look at how was my relationships, how's my relationships, how's my career, how's my finances, how's my fitness and health, how's my spirituality. So that's what people are familiar with. The purpose of self-reflection is really to take space and time to evaluate situations that happened. And it's a good daily practice because what it does is it helps bring you to presence. So by removing all distractions, you can really think about that. And people may be familiar of Western ways of doing that. So you might think about something like Johari's window, which is often used in a coaching situation. Or you might take a technique like something like perceptual positions from neurolinguistic program. They all do different. They all do the same thing. They're just, I always describe it as they're different doors to the same room. And it's really finding out which one is the one that works for you. The one I discovered about 12 months ago, because I studied psychotherapy, and I was interested in that. And once you dive into that world, you suddenly discover that there's this whole different flavor of things. And there's the Western approaches to psychotherapy, and then there's Eastern approaches to psychotherapy, and then there's blended approaches. And I particularly liked the blended approaches. So I came across Naikan and I thought, well, that sounds really interesting. And the quality of your life, Tony Robbins talks about this. He says the quality of life is dictated by the quality of the questions you ask yourself.
Yes.
And I particularly liked the questions in this because you have to remember a whole script for a start. You only have to remember 3 questions. And I think most people can do that. So that makes it simple.
Yeah.
So something that's easy to do, something that you don't need to go and get a degree in, or spend weeks studying books and qualifying and taking exams. It's just, no, this is really simple, and I liked it from that point of view. So when people are sort of stuck in a world of busy, or life's a bit out of control, or they're perhaps a little, things have happened where they're quite focused on themselves, and it's not going the way they want it, it's kind of like, okay, here's an opportunity to step back. So self-reflection comes out of spiritual traditions in the East. It's come out of Christianity as well. One of the famous examples that's used is Benjamin Franklin, who was quite rigorous about it. He had 13 dimensions that he used to record daily. How was he doing on each one? Which sounds a bit masochistic to me. If you,
you know what though, he's like one of these. I don't think we look at him as this, but I've so often in this self-development pursuit, I've come across examples from his old journals or things that he's kind of like one of the first self-development guys. Like he had a morning routine, he had something about naps and rest. Like he's really like he's in it. He was in it.
He certainly was. But look at all his achievements across so many different broad areas, and you say, well, something must have, there must be something in that, therefore go digging for it to say, well what works. Another approach is Dr. Marshall Goldsmith's a simple approach, which is how well did, if I score myself out of 10 on a question, how well did I manage to achieve whatever that question was, which might be, how well did I not moan about other people today on a score of 10? That's real simple stuff.
Well,
that if you track it.
Well, sorry, I was going to say, what I love about this is the truth that I find is that most people don't start asking these questions until they find themselves up against a wall. Like it's when it's all gone to hell, it's falling apart, then we start to go, what did I do wrong, or what did I do right, or how could it be different, or what am I doing with my life, right? That's a big one when it's like all falling apart. What have I done? What am I doing? And so we're taking it like we don't have to wait to that point. This isn't something you do when it's all falling apart. This is a regular practice. This is something that you kind of do to almost maybe keep yourself from getting to that point, right?
Well, it's like most things, going from A to B, because we live in a world of the internet and apps and hacks and this, that, and the other. We want instant gratification. We want things to be,
Oh, yeah.
but the things that are worth getting take time and discipline. So the hunger for success is sort of impatient and it's anxious and it's a bit clamorous, where the urge towards steady progress is much more circumspect and doesn't really worry about recognition. It's just on the path. And it's one of the things I love about my Aikido practice is you do it daily. And there's some days it's horrible, and there's some days where you go, actually, I made some progress, either physically or in a technique or understanding the principles of Aiki and those kinds of things. So everything is that daily discipline of practice, which is so hard to do because we're not very good at changing.
Right.
Generally, as I don't know about everyone else, but I find changing as a human being, as someone who gave up quite a bad drinking habit, a bad smoking habit, and a food comfort food. Those changes take a lot of time, and they take some discipline eventually to do that. So,
but something like this. So we're talking. Is it a range of questions, or is it always the same 3 questions?
It's always the same 3 questions. So the 3 questions are very, very simply, what have I received from this other person? Yeah.
Okay.
Is question 1.
Can you give me some examples of what someone might answer that?
So think about in work today. So think about this. Think about this interview. So what have I received from Tanya? Well, I received a whole bunch of support in terms of emails and how it works, and I've met the crew. The crew's been very supportive. So there's a whole long list. The whole point is to drive out that list of what have I received, because you might start with, if you've got a negative situation, you might start with the thing, well, I've not received anything. This situation isn't my problem; it's the other person's problem. I had this the other day with someone who works in financial services. I'd sent an email and I'd said, I hadn't heard back for a couple of days, and I'd copied someone in to get some attention, just to say, look, I just need to check this out because I need this cash to make a payment to someone else on time so that they don't go short. Anyway, apparently, unfortunately, she got chewed out by her boss, which when we spoke on the phone, I said, well, that's unfortunate. That wasn't my intention. My intention was just merely to make sure I can pay this other person. So in that situation, you reflect on that and you go, okay, so what did I get from the other person? Well, I eventually got some attention, and I got shouted at, and that did make me think. The second question is, what have I given to them? Well, I've given them a lot of business. Mm-hmm. They convinced me to make certain investments, which I've done. Those investments have grown, so they've done that. They've given me more confidence. They're starting to support me in building a stronger financial future for my family, which is great. So again, you start to build a list of what is it I'm getting from the person.
Okay.
And then the last question is the kicker, which is what trouble or difficulties did I cause the other person? And that's the real head twist on it. Yeah. Because you have to think, because your natural reaction might be, I didn't cause them anything. What do you mean? Right. I didn't cause them anything.
We don't want to be the troublemakers. Hold that thought. Sure. I have a couple questions about this. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive into who we're asking, how we're asking, and how we come up to our own issues with that. Because that sounds like a rough one. So we'll be right back. We're going to go for a commercial break. If you have to take a break too, don't forget, you can take us everywhere you go with our UI media streaming app. Go to uimediaapp.com to watch live now and catch all your favorite show replays. It's super, super simple. You enter your email, you go in, and you are ready to go. And so you won't have to miss anything. So we will see you in just a couple minutes. welcome back. I'm TanyaMFK, and we are here with a master of leadership and self-knowledge, Paul Crick. Now, before we dive back in, I just want to remind you guys to like, comment, ask questions, and share this video, and we will be checking with you all soon. So, Paul, before the break, we started to dive into really the 3 questions that are asked during this self-reflective process. And as you mentioned before too, is that there's many different types of this self-reflection process. This particular one is Naikan. And so we are exploring this simple process, really 3 questions. But there are some things that sound a little slightly rough. And I think it was the last question, which is where we had to own up to our stuff. But before we dive into that, I also wanted to ask, in our first question, it was, we kind of chose an interaction. With all the different things that happen throughout our day, how do we know which actions to choose, which ones to reflect on?
Good question. Again, it comes down to personal choice. So for me, it's what threw me off balance the most.
Okay.
What is it that I'm ruminating on? What is it that I'm thinking about? So the fact I'm still telling you the story about this customer service incident clearly means I need to go away and do a little more self-reflection to sort of clear it down. But the point is really the reason you're doing it is, I mean, Daniel Goleman would talk about emotional intelligence. So self-reflection is an important component of emotional intelligence because it's the self-awareness piece. Mm-hmm. that says, how am I behaving? How am I feeling? What missteps have I made? And what micro adjustments do I need to make when I go forwards tomorrow? To be that bit better tomorrow than I perhaps was today in a specific area.
So would you do this if you seemingly had a good day with no complaints?
I think as part of the discipline, yes, because you will still find things as you do the reflection, and this is why the time and space and lack of distractions becomes important, because some of that you may actually sit in silence for a proportion of the time that you're actually doing the work, and wait for something to come. And what's interesting is something inevitably does come. It's that quiet, still voice that we don't inside us that we don't always pay attention to or give enough space for it to make itself known.
Right. Yeah. Just because maybe we didn't get mad at the guy who cut us off, it doesn't mean that there's enough layers of other stuff sitting underneath there. There's in our life, right?
There's always work to be done. If you sat there. I always remember during one of my trainings, we were traveling to the venue and we were on the London Underground. And our teacher leaned over to me and he said, "Your socks are so cool." And I said, "Thank you very much." And he said, "Isn't it funny when you look at other people and you make judgments about them, you still know you have work to do?" And I thought that was a very interesting, just to get to the point where you're not making a judgment.
Right. And that can be good or bad. Right?
Whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
It's that thing, I always love the are you a glass half full or a glass half empty sort of person? And my answer to that is, well, I just see a glass. Sometimes it's got water in it, it's half full, and sometimes it's half empty. But I try and focus on it just being a glass, and it's hard. It's harder than you think.
Yeah.
When you're in the cut and thrust of daily life.
Well, so let's dive into it, like really specifically. Let's understand, I guess, a little more how we do this every day. Where does it look like? When does it tend to happen? How much time do we need? What does it look like?
You can take as much or as little. Again, this is about taking as much. So you can actually go on retreat if you want to do retreat. And you can go away for 30 days to a Naikan center, and you can do a big long reflection over that period of time. That's a lot of deep detailed work. It's like going on a meditation retreat or a silent meditation retreat.
So do they reflect on a certain question for like a couple hours, or like,
yes.
How does that? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they are working through a series of things to come away at the end of that period of retreat renewed, refreshed, and ready to re-engage with the world.
All
so
right.
that's at the one end of the scale.
That's the one end, right?
Yeah,
that's if you're like, come on, guys, if you have some time,
yeah. If you don't have kids,
and
and you've got a job that doesn't tax you and doesn't require you to work, then go for that. So it's you will find the daily shorter practices are worthwhile, and everybody's busy. So I always approach it in the same way that when people ask me, can you help me? When I was doing NLP coaching, they would say things like, can you help me with losing weight? And I said, okay, do some exercise. No, I haven't got any time. Okay, have you got a minute? No. Well, let's think about that. Have you got a minute between getting out of bed and going to the kitchen to make an orange juice or a cup of coffee or something? Yeah, I can do that. Okay, just jump up and down for a minute and start there. So I would set yourself a goal that you can succeed and build it from there. So I would start at 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and just make that time. I'm the sort of person that if I'm going to get something done, it needs to be in the calendar. If it's not in the calendar, I forget, because I need the reminders on the phone to remind me.
I tell people I'm organized not because I'm amazing. I'm organized because I know I'll forget. That's why.
Exactly. This digital dementia thing. I just need the phone to support me in that. So it's putting things in the diary. It's saying, okay, where is this space that's quiet? It can be indoors. It can be outdoors. It can be somewhere you travel to. Sometimes I'll take the dogs for a walk and I'll throw them in the back of the car and we'll park up somewhere, go for a walk and sit under a tree just for 3, 4, 5 minutes and think about the questions. And it's finding what works for you so that you create conditions for success, which is to do it every day. And that may not always work. I mean, I travel a lot. So if I find myself in a different city, I'm sort of slightly disoriented because I'm expecting, normally I go and sit out on the patio and look at the garden or something while I.
And I would assume, obviously, any practice that we do on a regular basis, something that becomes habit, is there's benefits in that. At the same time, it sounds like if you were to miss a day or something, it's not like you lose out on what you've been learning.
Yes, and it's like anything where you miss out. It's natural. Life gets in the way. So you wouldn't beat yourself up. You just go, oh well, okay, I missed it today. Redouble the effort to do it tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. And so once at minimum, like you said, start small, once a day, set this time aside, ask these 3 questions, which we'll make sure we find that for everybody again, what those are, and then have that time to kind of look within. And what I want to move to is then what? Like, what am I doing this for? What's my big benefit?
So from a leadership perspective, the case I make is that our ability to lead starts with ourselves, and therefore it's the quality of the relationship we have with ourselves. And if we don't have enough self-awareness of our behaviors and the impact on ourselves and other people, then that doesn't really sow the seeds or prepare the ground for us to have a better relationship with other peoples. We keep doing the same thing, and we get the same results. The crazy thing, as we all know, is do the same thing and expect a different result.
Right.
So the whole point is, can you recognize, and are you willing to be honest and admit, well, actually in that situation I did X, Y, and Z, and I was this, and I behaved in this way, and the reason was it was driven by a fear of this or a fear of that, or I wasn't controlling, I wasn't able to regulate my emotions, which then translates to behaviors, and therefore that caused a difficulty. Oh look, I caused trouble and difficulty in this situation. Take away from this as the learning points. Thing is, you may fall down the same hole again. So you may do the reflection and go, right, that's all all fixed. But then a few days later in the week, you do the same thing, and you go, oh, okay, what happened there? And that's the building the practice. It's like anything. It's like building the muscle. The more you exercise the muscle, the more it becomes automatic. And the reason is because of neuroplasticity, because we're rewiring how we think. We're rewiring using the language to describe the emotions we're having, the feelings we're having. And as we change our language, so we change the way our brain is wired, and therefore we create conditions for us to behave in a different, more empowering way.
See, and this is the part I love, because I love all this thought process and all these different ideas that I come across all the time. But I get really, really excited when we start to bring kind of the science into it. And when we go, like, there's not just kind of, what we've been inundated, unfortunately, incorrectly for many years, which is like the positive thinking type thing, right? And so we think if I just force myself to think this way and it's all going to be hunky dory, which we are, hopefully as a collective, people are learning that wasn't really the intention of that. But with this, that not only, yes, we're having kind of the self-reflective time, but the more that we are answering ourselves honestly and working in that, there's something happening in our brain. There's something like real scientific happening, right? Because it's something like you said, with the neuroplasticity, all that, like there's habits start to form like connections. I think it's Dr. Joe Dispenza who talks about this as well. Yeah, where those habits, they actually there's kind of a little break, and then the more and more we do it, they form a connection that starts to become permanent. And so there's a real thing happening here, guys, when we're doing this, right? Go ahead. You can probably explain it way more better than I can.
well, no, let me demonstrate. So fold your arms how you would normally fold them, whichever way. Do that, and then flip them the other way.
Oh yeah, that seems super weird.
And that's your brain that's your brain jolting, going, what's going on here? And the rewiring going on. And by the time you've done that about 4 or 5 times, you're in.
Right. Okay. Yeah. See, and that's exactly it, right? It's like that we're so used to doing something one way. And I would think that is a perfect thing for this example as well, is that, you're so used to thinking a certain way. Well, Shirley was just being a jerk, right? And we can just think that way and count it off. But if we actually take time to sit back and think about what that exchange really was like, or our part in it, or use these 3 questions, we may not only start to think differently about it, but maybe even in the moment, our reactions and things changing because we're having a different thought process about it, right?
Exactly. I mean, think about the unconscious influence that the media has, that our education systems have in terms of conditioning us in certain ways, to condition our thought patterns to respond in a certain way. And until we become aware of this, sometimes we need a coach to guide us through that process, to challenge and say, well, if someone says, oh, I never do that, and then you go, never? Really?
Yes.
It's just, and again, it comes back to quality questions.
Yes. Well, that brings us to our next thing. So we're going to have to go away and take a break, but I do want to dive into the accountability part of this, because I feel like that's where we can do this, we can set aside, but what if we're not being honest with ourselves? What if we're stubborn? So how do we get through that on our own and with somebody helping us? So see you guys real soon. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. So before we dive back into Naikan with Paul Crick, it is a self-reflection technique where we can use this for success in our life, our careers, everywhere. I want to check in and just say a quick hello to our audience. So Billy McElroy said hello. We say a big hello to you as well. And Stephen Smith, who is watching us from Sarasota, Florida. Awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. If you do have any questions for Paul, any comments, thoughts, whatever, throw them out there. We'll be checking in with you guys and make sure that we get those answered for you. So before the break, we were just talking about kind of the benefits and a little more of the inner workings of Naikan and the questions. So I think for this segment here, I would like to dive back into what we talked about before the break, which was, as we're asking ourselves these 3 questions, there's those of us who I think could go one route where we're going to beat ourselves up. We're like, I was just horrible. And this is what it was, maybe like on, doomsday end. And then we may have the other side where we're just stubborn, like, what? It was fine. Everything was fine. Or, it was all Shirley's fault. Fortunately, I don't know an actual Shirley, so it was all Shirley's fault. So, how do we do we need to be at a certain place of honesty to even get benefit from this? Or is there a way to work through that as we're trying to do this practice?
So it starts with intention, doesn't it? It starts with, what's the whole intention? What's the intention of you people tuning in to find out more about how to have a better life? We all want a better life. We want better relationships. We want to be able to be more financially secure, to provide for our families, and we want to be in work that is meaningful for us. Right. Generally, I think that broadly is very general, but broadly
it's a safe assumption. I would say
it's a reasonable assumption.
Yeah.
So the question that becomes is, if you're not getting the results you want, then how's that? What is it that's causing that? And you will go a certain way down the road in what effectively is pain until there's too much pain, and then you'll move away from it. So the behaviors that you're showing today that may not be particularly empowering are getting you a result. Again, Tony Robbins talks about the 6 human needs, and each need can be achieved in either an empowering way or a disempowering way. Mm-hmm. So people's need for certainty might be got by injecting a needle and taking drugs, because that's a particular way of getting certainty. But then you get to a certain point of pain, and I exaggerate for effect, but you get to a certain point of pain where someone says you're going to die, and then that's enough for them to move. In fact, that happened to me about 20 years ago when I went for a medical checkup, and I was smoking heavily. I was 40 cigarettes a day. Wow. I was drinking a lot, and I was very overweight. And the nurse put the blood pressure cuff on me, and she walked away, and she came back and looked at the reading, and she said, "Oh dear." And I said, "What?" She said, "No, oh dear, oh dear." And I said, "Really, what?" And she says, "You need to go and see the doctor." And I said, "Okay, when do I need to do that?" She said, "Tomorrow morning." Ooh. Without fail. And that can sometimes be enough to cause that little trigger that goes, "Okay, I get it. This has been serving me for now.
Yeah.
But now I know it's not serving me, and I don't know what to do, but I know I need to move away from it.
Right.
Therefore, I now need to choose something different."
So if you've gotten and you're searching for this practice, it's safe to say that you have some level of wanting to resolve an issue. So perhaps you would be less stubborn. You wouldn't be so, so if your employer assigned you to do it, then maybe it's easier for you to go, "I didn't do anything wrong. Everything, I have no ownership." But if it's probably not the case. So if you were coming to this practice, there's got to be some level in you that's obviously searching, like you said, for intent. Your intent would be to hopefully resolve something. There's something you're probably not happy with, and that's why you're searching or need to enhance.
I think that's some of it. Yes, definitely. And then as you dive into it, you suddenly say, okay, well, what do I take? If I choose to take responsibility for everything in my life, which is usually the first thing, whether you're going through a 12-step program or whether you're going through a personal development program, there's this idea that you now take responsibility for all your decisions. So it's kind of like, oh, crap.
It's not fun, but man, stuff gets resolved, right?
I tell you, it is so worth the journey is so worth it. So coming through that, but then you suddenly think about, okay, so what else am I responsible for? And then you start to get challenged. You go, okay, you're responsible for the fires in the Amazon, and you kind of go, what? Wait a minute, how do you figure that out? How can that possibly be little me? And you kind of go, well, if you look at consumption of beef, if you change that might actually change how the Amazon is currently being used as a money crate. So you start to get in this whole thing of, oh man, I am responsible for so much, and then it overwhelms you.
Like butterfly effect, right?
Yeah. But then it overwhelms you, and you kind of go, oh God, I can't do anything. But it's really start with you and start small.
Yeah.
Pick one thing small.
And the thing about taking that ownership is that when it's somebody else doing it, when you look and go, well, that's Shirley's fault again, and it's because of this person or it's that person, then we also give them the power. And when it becomes our fault, we have now the power to do something about it, right? Like that's my favorite.
And the thing about blaming
about
Shirley, the thing about blaming Shirley is that gives you something that serves you in some way. And usually the way it serves you is that it means you, by pushing it out there, by projecting it, what Carl Jung talked about, you project all the things that you don't want to face out there into the world and usually onto the people you love the most. Then until you understand that you are projecting stuff, then and get your head around what that really means and how it serves you, and it's fear or it's an uncomfortable feeling in your body that you don't know what label to give it, because it's just horrible and it's and it's causing behaviors. Think about PTSD and how that works with flashbacks and having to deal with that kind of feeling in your body and get comfortable, learn how to get comfortable with it and accept. A lot of it is around self-acceptance, to say, okay, I have this feeling and I'm going to give it this name that is a word that doesn't make any sense. It's I am discombobulated. Nobody knows what that word means, but if that means something to you, then you have named it, and therefore that is half a step towards acceptance.
Interesting.
And therefore by naming, you are increasing your self-awareness, you're increasing your emotional agility, in other words, your ability to accept feelings and name them. But you're also increasing what a good friend of mine calls emotional fluency, which is the other side of emotional intelligence, which is about the ability to recognize and work with feelings of others, to have empathy with others. So it develops greater empathy as you start to make, and this is the whole point about next level leadership, the better the relationship with yourself, then the better your relationship with other people will eventually be. But the work starts with you.
And this is perfect, because this is exactly where I wanted to go, because we really, I think we're starting to see and paint a picture for the audience here that this improves in relationships. The awareness comes up. We can see how this can help maybe how we feel and get on with our day. But how does it really play out, or the benefits that come out when we're talking about leadership positions, or just in our business? A lot of people watch this, have their own businesses. How does this work in those situations, as opposed to maybe with our spouses or friends or coworkers even?
We're so used to leadership being defined as a heroic a another, sort of arriving at the nick of time to save the day, usually wearing a cape and some underwear on the outside, and the reality is that's not what leadership is. Leadership is very much the ordinary tasks. Leadership is not position. It's not genius. It's not charisma. It's, Warren Bennis said, leadership is about becoming yourself. It's precisely that simple, and it's precisely that difficult.
Interesting. Yeah, because I believe that in the idea of leadership that we do, it's the person in charge is the one who's, leading the ship, making everything happen. So how is this self-reflection making that person a better leader?
So let me give you the example of Alan Mulally when he was chief executive at Ford. The business was about to go 17 billion into the red, not million with an M, but billion with a B. Wow. And he had his team come together, and they would produce reports, and on the reports there'd be a color code that said, if it was red, it was bad and we didn't know what to do. If it was amber, then it was bad, but we kind of had a plan and we felt reasonably confident we would do something. And if it was green, then everything was okay. So he comes into his role, runs his first leadership meetings. How many reds do you think he saw in that? Zero. And it wasn't until someone had the courage to actually step up and say, actually, we've got a problem and I don't know what to do about it. And then he mirrored that. And because of his awareness, because of his self-awareness, he was able to say, I don't have the answer, but I know the answer is in the room.
Okay.
And what that does is that so being able to be that open and honest and vulnerable gives permission for other people to do the same thing. Is to go, oh, it's okay. And Ford eventually came out of the hole, and that's why he is who he is. But that's interesting. But if you read his mission is fascinating. He says, my mission in life is to love and to be loved.
Really?
Now, yes.
I've never heard that.
And how many workplaces do we use the L word?
Oh,
exactly.
I'm surprised it's not like on the list. The contract is, they can't even use it these days.
No, exactly. It's taboo because we all immediately jump to romantic love and all that kind of thing, and the Me Too thing, and it's kind of, no, that's not what we're talking about.
Or you're too woo woo, and you're out there. You're not professional.
Too wafty woo woo. So what it is about, it's like being a great parent. Anybody can be a parent, but to be a great parent, you have to invest time and energy in your kids. So I talk about it's about setting the example, not doing it for the other person, but setting the example. It's about providing a safe and supportive environment. It's about providing patience, loving encouragement, and then celebrating success when you get there. I think change initiatives in organizations would turn around simply by thinking about that and saying, how can I do that in my workplace?
Yeah, I love this. And like you said, this is not what most people think of leadership. They're going to think of the, productivity and organization, but this is really what you're talking about. When I see in all your work that you're doing is changing the paradigm of what leadership is, right?
Well, it's not really. It's almost getting back to what it was. We've swung the needle so far this way. It's kind of like we now need to rebalance it to be, leadership is all about how do you create more leaders? How do you light more candles? How do you, we insist on leaders being so well-rounded, and I think that's idiotic.
They're supposed to be the ones that are fallible to show us that it can be done and that we can.
Well, it's not just that. It's like, well, where is your passion? What is your purpose? And how do I help you become more present? I think if we did that in the workplace and help people, everyone in the room has a responsibility to help everyone else grow.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that. You guys don't go anywhere. We're going to leave for our break. Guys, if you're trying to plan and become a leader, make sure you take a chance to go look at our shop now on the uimedia.org to check out our daily planners, the Seeds of Intention and Sprouts of Intention. That'll also help you as you try maybe this Naikan practice. All right, we'll see you soon. Just a minute.
This is Kurt Arsenault of Arsenault Advisory Group. Do you make a six-figure income but live paycheck to paycheck? You're not alone. Many six-figure income households will buy too much home and too much car, creating tremendous financial stress that builds debt when you should be building wealth. If you make six figures and live paycheck to paycheck, visit arsenaultadvisory.com and download our free ebook titled, I Make Six Figures and Live Paycheck to Paycheck. You have nothing to lose and potentially everything to gain. Visit arsenaultadvisory.com today.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So we have been having an awesome talk with Paul Crick, who has been teaching us about self-reflection, leadership, changing even the kind of the concepts in the workplace here, and learning the art of self-reflection and how we can use it every day, not just for our personal, but for our career. A lot of times, as we discussed, we're keeping those things separate, but really we are one whole person. And so this practice can help us in every day. So we were just talking before the break, Paul, about kind of the way it was in leadership and the things we look at. Do you find that there are any things that people say are difficult about trying this practice?
Yeah, I think so. I think as human beings, we are creatures of habit, and therefore changing any habit is difficult. You'll see lots of books that say, 21 days to this, or 21 days to that, and 21 days to that. And unfortunately, it takes a little longer than 21 days. But I understand why you would put that on a book, which is fine. So it takes time and commitment, and usually it helps to have an accountability partner or coach to work with you. Less about did you, it isn't a phone call that says, did you do it? It's how did you find it's working through the process of what did you do, what went well, what was difficult. Now let's explore that to try and shift the awareness. So using a third party almost to see that blind spot for you, and then to bring it into awareness. But people can start from where they are and just explore what it feels like to actually do it, and have to sort of butt up against things that perhaps you hadn't thought differently. So good question.
Are there like Naikan coaches, like people who you go specifically just to kind of keep tabs on you while you try this practice?
There are coaches that will use Naikan in their practice, but really any coach that's using any of the self-reflection, so anyone that's using a Johari window, anyone that's using perceptual position, Dr. Goldsmith's thing, the point is, what are the questions they are asking you, and what is the outcome you're getting to, and are the questions helping you understand your behavior and your thinking in a way that causes a shift to go, okay, I hadn't seen that before. Usually what happens is the conversation goes quite quiet, because you can hear the cogs whirring and the wiring being rewired, and that's great. And then there's all kinds of questions that really good coaches will ask, but it's not the did you do it question. That isn't the assumption in this kind of coaching, is that you're a grown up and that you already have the intention, and you're not waiting for Batman to show up and do it for you. You actually want to take the steps forward and do the transformation yourself. And I salute anyone that does it, because it's a courageous journey to take, but it is one that is so worthwhile, because you push into, you leave the comfort zone and push into areas of growth that may be uncomfortable from time to time, but get that support network around you to support you and go, it's okay. Either we've been on a similar journey and this is perfectly normal. You've got that life cycle, where life is one way, and then all of a sudden things are sort of decomposing, and you're going, why is this happening? What's going on? But new life comes out of it once you start to do the work. And that cycle goes through all of our life.
Yeah. Well, and it all comes through the awareness. Like, there's not much we can do about anything if we don't know where we're at, what it is, anything. I mean, that's really the root of this practice, right?
I think so, yes. And it's two levels of awareness. There's the head awareness. The assumption we make is that we only work from the neck up.
Mm-hmm.
That everything happens from the neck up, and an awful lot happens in the body.
Yes.
And the body is making guesses all the time about what's going on. Do I need water? Do I need to be fed? The purpose of the body, the brain, is to keep the body alive, is to keep us alive. That's its primary purpose. So it's doing like these micro sweeps of the body to go, what was that? And then it's going, that feels like that event 2 weeks ago. Oh, I must be hungry, or I fancy something sweet, or I feel uncomfortable because I'm just about to go and make a presentation in front of a whole bunch of people, and I'm not sure of my material. It's doing that, but it's then balancing that against what we're taking in from the outside world through our perception, through our sight, our smell, our hearing, our taste, and our touch, and marrying those two up to go, is it safe? Is it okay? Or am I in danger?
Will this practice help us kind of be more aware of those subtle feelings in our body? Because I know that's something they talk about a lot with the technology overload and everything, is that we're not as aware as we used to once be of just the subtle things happening in our bodies.
Yeah, well, we need to understand that there's three brains in our body. There's the brain in our head, the brain in our heart, and the brain in our gut. Mm-hmm. Well, just that as a piece of awareness to some people is new. God, what are you talking about? And then going and doing the reading that says actually more messages go from the heart to the brain than from the brain to the heart. And you go, okay, That's interesting. And then looking at energy fields and looking at how energy fields overlap, because we have an electromagnetic field around our bodies that goes somewhere between 5 and 7 feet outside our bodies. And therefore, when someone enters our field and we feel that, that's real.
Yes, right. It's not just, again, a woo-woo thing. That's a real thing.
It's not woo-woo. Science.
Yes.
The thing I love about all this is science is finally investigating this. And in the search for truth, which is what good science is actually producing answers that says, actually, this is a scientific proof of what you think is woo-woo and wafty.
Right. And it's all coming together. No, this is fascinating. I love this. And I'm really excited to start into this journey that I'm going to embark on. Guys, I don't know. I hope you're getting this. Like, this is it's so simple it to do and to follow, but the results can be so powerful. We don't want to wait for that truck to hit us, figuratively or literally, for us to go, man, I need to stop and think about what's going on with myself, my life, my body, these interactions. Like this, like Paul is giving us a very, very simple practice to try to make some sense of this, and something that I feel like it keeps us on the path, right? It keeps us from going maybe too far anywhere, to just keep that center, to go, yes, I have the power to make these changes and these choices, and I can be aware of what's going on with me, and really who I want to be, right? The more I'm aware of who I am, and I can decide who I want to be, right? So before my last question, Paul, will you please tell everyone here how they can find you and any special things that you have going on?
Okay, so you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. So it's just Paul Crick. It's Paul H. Crick on Twitter. That's where I hang out a lot. Just inbox me if you've got questions or things you want to ask. I have a website, which is paulcrick.coach, which tells you a bit more about the way I think about leadership and some of the things I do. So I work with businesses and teams. I work with individuals one-on-one, and I do group coaching as well. So those are the primary things.
So you guys can find him when you need that accountability, when you need to take your leadership to the next level. And also, we will have some details. You'll see his website listed below, guys. Go there. He has some special giveaways for some people. And we will actually, you can see that on my Instagram. We'll have a post about a special offer that he has for some heart-centered businesses to do some applications. So with that, Paul, could you please tell me what my assignment is for the next 2 weeks to use this self-reflection practice and test it out for the next 2 weeks?
Okay, very simply, make 15 minutes available in your diary. Put it in your diary. Pick a place where you won't be distracted and you feel comfortable being in that place and you feel relaxed. And make that time the same time every day if you can. But if not, just make sure the 15 minutes go in. And then think of a situation that is bothering you or has happened during that particular day, and ask yourself the 3 questions and write down.
Can you recap those again real quick?
Yeah, sure. So what have I received from this person? What have I given to them? And what trouble or difficulties did I cause them?
Okay. And it's always a person.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
Usually. You can take Naikan. So once you start to think about it, you can actually say, well, I need to thank my car because my car transported me from home to work. That's probably the advanced course.
Okay, that's advanced. Okay, we won't go there yet. We won't go there yet.
Let's not go there. Let's just keep it to human beings that it makes it easy to relate to, and you can start to feel how the energy shifts in you as you start to do the exercise. So have a go at that.
Okay. All right. I am ready. You guys, again, make sure to find Paul, follow him, enhance your life. And Paul, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
He has a TEDx talk coming soon out. He just filmed it, guys. So keep your eyes peeled for that. we are so lucky to have him here as he also graces the stages. So you guys, we have our assignment this week. If you want to follow along, let us know by tagging us at My Design Life Show and using the hashtag #YesINaikan. Make sure to join us on Instagram tomorrow at My Design Life Show for an Explore More session where Paul and I will go a little deeper into the practice and have some Q&A. That'll be live tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. EST on Instagram at My Design Life Show. That is also where you can see how my Naikan practice goes for the next 2 weeks. Wish me luck. And if you like this and you want to see more, don't miss a thing by subscribing to one of our channels, or better yet, get on our email list and get show updates, highlights, guest giveaways, the replays, and more. You can find everything at mydesignlife.show, TanyaMFK.com, or just reach out to me at TanyaMFK. We will see you here every other Monday to create a life you love on the UI Media Network. That is all for now. Remember, your someday starts today. Make it the best. I'll see you next time. I'm TanyaMFK. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us at My Design Life. Catch us every other Monday at 3 p.m. EST. Follow us at TanyaMFK, My Design Life Show, United Intentions Foundation, and UI Media Network. Do you have methods, tips, or hacks to live your best life? Be a guest on our show. Contact us at mydesignlife.show to submit an application.